because I couldn't see any of the comments, and I'm not sure how to actually do that. I'm using Riverside, which is like a live streaming platform, and it goes to both LinkedIn and YouTube. Um, and I always thought that the live stream chat was what you look at, but maybe not. So I might just be referencing any comments on LinkedIn and looking at my phone, just to make sure I don't miss anything, because there were a few comments that I missed last time that I want to make sure I get a chance to answer live. And I'm going to answer some of the questions that people left on the last live stream live that I didn't get the chance to answer because I didn't see them. So let's see. My phone, one thing about me is that my phone never has enough space for everything, so I've been deleting and re-downloading the LinkedIn app, and it's inconvenient. I need to get a new phone, but I'm one of those people where like I don't want to buy new technology until I run my old technology into the ground, which I feel like that's probably very counterintuitive for a lot of tech people, but that's just me for you. All right, let's see if I can find where this is on LinkedIn. I don't even know if you can see events on LinkedIn. What coffee is everyone drinking today? I actually tried out something new for this, which I was in a little bit of a rush to go live because I decided I wanted to make a homemade coffee syrup before this live. Uh, if you are familiar with Phoenix, if you live in Arizona, there's a coffee shop called Peixoto, and every like May or June they do this coconut series, and it's like a huge thing here. If you're a coffee lover or you love this coffee shop, they have locations in Gilbert and Chandler, and they do this coconut theme, and they basically have coconut cold brew, coconut lattes, and I feel like coconut matchas. And I don't know what it is about this coconut coffee, but it is just so good. My husband has been driving 40 minutes in the morning some days to go and pick up this coffee, and he's been buying like just a cup of coffee, like the homemade coconut syrup from them, so we can make the lattes at home because we have a problem. We're addicted. And I was like, I can definitely try to make this coffee syrup myself at home. So I made the coconut syrup this morning. It was a can of coconut milk, well, half a can, and then half a cup of cane sugar and half a cup of water. And it turned out pretty good. I think the full recipe calls for like 2 cups of sugar, but there's no way I'm putting 2 cups of sugar. I don't know. I can't, I can't accept that. All right, I need to find this event. I I don't know. I don't really like the way the LinkedIn app is organized. I think it makes it really hard for you to see your own like activity and stuff. I don't know. Or your own posts. So let me try and find this online. And I keep getting a notification that something went wrong. So let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope I'm actually streaming right now and the quality is okay. All right. All right, now I'm watching myself, which is kind of weird. I don't see any comments yet, but all right, so let's review some of the comments from last live stream. One of them, and then I want to talk about Snowflake Summit. What tools do you think need to be on a resume to be considered for analytics engineering roles? Most of us have been in data engineering or data analyst roles before making the role switch. So, this is a really good question. I talk a lot about how to make your skills transferable as a data analyst or a data engineer, because if you didn't know, I was a data engineer for 3 years before I became an analytics engineer. And I think it's actually a superpower to have worked in a previous role and to switch into another role, because you just get a perspective that you wouldn't get if you're in the same role your entire career. So like as a data engineer, I was really able to like build up those foundational skills of like AWS, cloud, Python scripting, because I don't think if I went directly into analytics engineering or data analyst, I would have ever learned those skills. And like, while I didn't really enjoy those roles while I was in them because I missed that business interaction, it was a really good foundation in my career. And that's why I always recommend just like trying out different careers and seeing if you like them, because you literally have nothing to lose and you're always going to learn something valuable from them. So, like, if you're a data analyst, you've been wanting to be an analytics engineer, like, you have nothing to lose by trying it out, and you can harness all of the skills that you learned as a data analyst. But in terms of how to get an analytics engineering role and what skills to hone in on in order to get an analytics engineering role, this isn't going to be the answer you want, but it really depends. I think there are definitely some core skills. SQL is a must, data modeling is a must. And then from there, like business communications also a must, but that's like really hard to kind of portray on your resume. I think that's something that you can really come across better in interviews, or I mean, you can like add, I guess, specific bullet points of like how you translated business requirements into technical products. But yeah, I would like look at, so I think I made a LinkedIn post about this maybe last week. Look at a few different roles that you would like be so excited to have and that you would love to apply for, and see what skills and what experience they're asking for. Find like 3 to 5 of those and then try to look at the commonalities of all of those job postings, because that kind of gives you a good idea of what the market wants and what the specific roles that really interest you want. Like, for example, maybe you really want to work for an e-commerce company and they all require experience with like subscription MRR models. That's something that's pretty specific to the e-commerce subscription business, but will be really important if that's the kind of role that you want. So if you look at different job descriptions of like roles that you're interested in, that's like a really good way to find the skills that you need. I always recommend starting with like the foundations first, but at the end of the day, companies do want to know that you're familiar with different tools. So I think if you study the foundations and then you kind of just like dabble around with the tools, it's really easy to apply the foundations to those tools. So, like, don't, for example, go into like, oh, I want to know Snowflake. Like, focus on the data warehousing principles and then you can apply them to Snowflake, and then you can put that you know Snowflake on your resume. So, hopefully that helps. Okay. I'm not seeing any comments yet. Just want to make sure that there's nothing that I'm missing here. Okay. Next question. And thank you for answering that or asking that question, Robert. Hopefully that helps. Appreciate your work on pushing analytics engineering, Madison. Did you get a chance to watch the DBT launch showcase? So I actually haven't watched the showcase. I just read through their blog posts that they posted. I still need to watch the showcase. I'm just more of like a reader. I like I like reading articles, I think, in general, rather than watching videos, which is ironic because I'm going live right now. But everyone learns a little bit differently, and um, yeah, I think it's definitely exciting, the changes that are coming. I think the DBT Fusion engine, I personally haven't like seen necessarily a need for that in my work, but the DBT projects I've worked with are often very small, and like we're just working on launching them and getting them started, so we're not like dealing with hundreds of DBT data models. So I think the Fusion engine is probably powerful when you have huge projects that you're working with. I do think it's interesting that they're, of course, focusing more on cloud than core. That's not surprising. Like, you know, they have to make money somehow, but I do. I'm a big core user. I've always used core. I've never used cloud for development just because, like, you know, as an engineer, developer, you want like that typical developer experience. You don't want to have to like go to this clunky UI. It's just easier to use the commands line and like an editor like VS Code. So I don't know. I still need to like put together all my thoughts. I think that's probably going to be next week's newsletter. So if you have any thoughts, I'm curious. I feel like the from the people that I've talked to, the feedback is that, oh, they made this huge launch, they weren't ready to make this huge launch, or it seems a little bit rushed, or it's not fully fleshed out yet. So I think a lot of people are actually skeptical, um, which is interesting because that's not exactly what I expected. But I don't know. It's always kind of the case when a tech company makes like these big launches. It's like they're still kind of in like the trial period. You kind of have to see how it goes. Like that's kind of how I felt when DBT launched the semantic layer. Like we didn't jump on that. I didn't jump on that. A lot of people, I don't know how many. I'm curious like how many people actually use the semantic layer feature of DBT because I personally haven't used it much. I don't know. I don't think really felt a need or, yeah. Okay. Let's see what. Okay, that was all the questions on the last LinkedIn Live. I guess let's talk a little bit about Snowflake Summit. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Alright, Grammarly is popping up in the way of this message I'm trying to send. Love you, Grammarly, but sometimes you're just like right in the way. Alright, I'm like curious if that message sent to the live stream chat. Okay, I see I do have a question. For someone who is about to start first time as analytics engineer, do you have any tips on how to use the best first months? So I guess my first question is, are you starting a role or are you starting to like educate yourself and acquire analytics engineering skills? I'm guessing based off of the question that it seems like you're about to start an analytics engineering role. I think the biggest thing is like being curious and following your curiosity and and what you want to learn. A lot of it is all just like trial and error. When I was in my first role, I was the only analytics engineer on a data team of 3, and I built the entire data stack up from the ground. And like a lot of those tools I had never used before, and it was really just about like a lot of research and experimentation and asking for help where I needed it. It looks like you work for JP Morgan, so I assume you'll have a lot of support, and there's probably a lot of other analytics engineers that you're working for. So don't be afraid to like lean on them for support and kind of see how they think about solving different processes. And don't be afraid to ask a lot of like business questions, because I think that's how you really get your footing, is asking questions and not being afraid to look stupid, because a lot of times like you'll uncover things that maybe the stakeholder hasn't told you, or things that you originally wouldn't have even thought to ask. The more questions, the better. And yeah, just like really lean in. And I think the best learning resource is honestly other people. And the data community is really great and supportive. So don't be afraid to like ask any questions in my Learn Analytics Engineering newsletter chat. We have a chat where you can like ask anything, and a whole community of analytics engineers. So I think that is really helpful. Especially when you're on a smaller team, which I don't know if that's the case with you, but like the DBT, locally optimistic Slack channels, and like again, my Substack chat in the newsletter is really helpful. But yeah, I think just don't be married to like one specific idea or tool, and just be open to, you know, taking feedback and learning as you go, because that's really the only way you can. And you can't expect yourself to be perfect, especially in a new role that you're unfamiliar with. So yeah, as much advice and support you can get as possible, the better. Hopefully that helps. Okay. So, a little bit about Snowflake Summit, in case anyone was curious. It was a very last minute decision that I decided to go. Luckily, San Francisco isn't that far from Arizona, but I think I bought my hotel and my flight on Friday. Left early Monday morning, and I have to say, I'm not used to like not getting a lot of sleep or very good sleep. And it's like, I don't know how I used to do this in college, because I am like very rigid about my night and morning routines and getting enough sleep and everything. But went out on Monday, pretty much spent the day working from a coffee shop, walked to get some dumplings, which were delicious, and went to the Mother Duck party that night, which was really cool. Any party that's gonna have a charcuterie board like the size of a huge table, like, you can count me in. I am there. Um, I feel like it's hard to find good conference food. I don't know. Usually it's just all like kind of unhealthy stuff, and I love a good charcuterie board. So that was very exciting. And they also had good mocktails, because I don't drink, and I feel like sometimes it's hard to find like a mocktail that isn't just like a soda or lemon and sparkling water. Um, Unlimited skee ball, which was fun. I got a little duck stuffed animal for my dogs, because they love the stuffed animals that I bring home from conferences. Plato has a little snowflake bear from when I went 2 years ago, and it is his favorite toy. So, and then Sigma was able to hook me up with a summit pass, which was super exciting, because I wasn't sure if I was actually going to end up going to the actual conference, or if I was just gonna be going to like the after parties and stuff. So that was amazing. Shout out to Sigma, you are the best. And basically, I didn't go to any sessions. I did go to the two keynotes, but I really was just like walking around the floor, talking to people in the community, some familiar faces, some people I had never met before. I just love like learning about what everyone is doing in the data space. There's just so many cool things, and obviously there's such a focus on AI right now, and how different companies are implementing AI into their data stack, which that's a conversation for another day. I don't think a lot of companies are at the point where they're even ready for AI, but it's just like, I don't know, it's cool to see what problems people are facing and what tools exist on the market to help solve those problems. And the last two companies, well, the only two companies that I've done official analytics engineering roles, have all been like pretty small teams, less than 200 people, less than 100 people, and the data teams have all been really small, so the problems that I faced are kind of similar. So it's interesting to learn about more analytics engineering issues on like a larger scale for larger companies. It was cool to Whoop is like a close, oh, I'm not wearing it right now. Well, Whoop is like one of my favorite brands. I've been a customer for 5 years. They measure health and sleep data essentially, and basically like use it to predict HRV and recovery scores. And they were a huge partner with Snowflake, and their head of data was talking about how they use Cortex within Snowflake to essentially help their stakeholders answer their business questions. And I thought that was really interesting, especially because like the companies that I've worked for and the data teams I've worked on have never really had a requirement of something that such a large scale. So that was cool to see. You're just like exposed to, different problems, different ways of solving things. Yeah. What else from Snowflake? Oh, Snowflake announced that you could now edit DBT projects within Snowflake, which is really exciting. I actually haven't used Snowflake in, oh God, I guess it's been 2 years, over 2 years. Well, I did use it for my Maven course on DBT, but I haven't actually used it in a job because I was using Redshift at Kit, and I miss Snowflake. Snowflake just has so many capabilities, products, features. Like, I miss just like being able to mess around with it and like solve problems in there. So I would love if you know of any companies that need analytics engineering consultants and use Snowflake. I would love to just solve some problems using their newer features and being able to test and try them out, because there's so much there. I am curious, what data warehouse do you use at the companies that you work for, whether you're a data analyst, data engineer, analytics engineer? I feel like Snowflake is the most popular one, but obviously there are other ones that people use as well. And just refresh here. You're welcome, Renata. Hopefully that was helpful. Excited to see your analytics engineering journey, and definitely let me know if you have any questions along the way. I'm always happy to help. So, okay, back to Snowflake Summit. I'm trying to think what else. I was really impressed by all the free stuff and all the branding there. I hung out at Club Hex a lot, which was like this really nice 3-floor space that Hex had rented out, and they had free coffee. And the coffee was actually really good. I had 2 flat whites on Wednesday, the same day that I flew home, and I was feeling it. My heart was like pounding. Like, this is why I can't have 2 coffees, because I normally, the coffee that I drink at home is also a third caffeinated. So even if I have just one caffeinated, like full caffeinated drink, I feel the difference. So 2 full caffeinated drinks was not a good idea on my part, but what's everyone working on? I'm curious what projects you're focusing on in analytics engineering right now. Maybe you can comment, and we'll talk about them a little bit more in the next Friday's live. But I'm very interested to hear. Like, Snowflake is very top of mind right now. Today I'm planning on working on an outline for my data pipeline summer challenge on my newsletter, which I did last year, and it was a big hit because it was very hands-on. Each newsletter walked you through like a different part of the pipeline, and I want to do essentially that same challenge again, but I really want to do like an open source version, because that used Snowflake, DBT, used Airbyte, which is open source, I think it used Prefect as well, so I think it would be really fun to do like DuckDB, maybe SQL Mesh, because I've been very curious about SQL Mesh lately. Obviously love DPT, but I think it's good to learn different technologies and see what's out there. And I think it's good that there's like finally some competition in the space, because for a while it was just like DBT dominating, but a good friendly competition is good because it just ends up making the products even better than if they were in their own little silo. So, yeah, excited for that. Definitely recommend subscribing to the paid portion of the newsletter so you can be a part of that Data Pipeline Summer Challenge. It's just a great way to learn something new if you already are in an analytics engineering role. Sometimes we kind of get stuck in like a rut of using the same technologies and solving the same problems, but it's good to branch out and keep up to date with what's new in the field and the industry, and try some different tools and technologies in case they end up being helpful for your current role or future role. And yeah, it's just nice to do something different to solve a unique problem. With a data pipeline somewhere, I always like trying to make it a business problem that we're solving. So you're not just like building a pipeline to build a pipeline, because I think a lot of courses and learning resources are just like, oh, build this thing for the sake of building it. But like everything you do should have a why behind it. And that's what I really want to keep top of mind with the Data Pipeline Summer Challenge is like, why are we doing this way? Why are we even building this in the first place? And having like a business scenario. And I really want to start doing that more in a lot of my newsletters, because I think it's really helpful to be able to have that information and then apply it to an actual problem that you would face in a job, because it's just hard to find in a lot of content nowadays. Ooh, okay. Two new questions. Is Snowflake's path to consolidate an all-in-one platform, engineering, analytics, ML, and data science, or is the focus still on data warehouse and analytics? I definitely think they're trying to consolidate to be all in one, because there's a lot going on there. I was like very curious to hear what some of the partners and like the vendor hall had to think about this, especially like the cost optimization, because there are a lot of Snowflake cost optimization tools out there, and they announced adaptive compute, which is supposed to save you money. And I was like, what are these cost saving tools? Think about this. Um, and essentially they said they don't think it's going to change much. Like Snowflake still wants to make money on compute, so they probably won't be saving as much money as you think. But I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to put that to the test. And then some of the cost tools were, oh, we focus on more of like the entire stack, so like saving costs across your entire stack rather than within just Snowflake. Um, but yeah, because now they have, oh, I forget, what did they call it? It was like data flow or flow something. I don't know, something that was essentially like ingestion into your warehouse. I mean, obviously they're not solving like the transformation portion. They're into partnering with DBT and with that, but now you can run DBT within Snowflake. So that kind of does give like that all-in-one platform feeling, because now you don't even have to leave Snowflake to use DBT, which is helpful for development. But yeah, it definitely does kind of like lock you in to Snowflake even more, because now you're like really invested. You're doing all your development within Snowflake. Yeah, like there's really not a part of the tool that you or like there's really not anything that you can't do within Snowflake, it seems. I guess it's more of like preference, ease of use. Like you have to do a little bit more manual pipeline work to like build it in DBT or to build it in Snowflake, whereas with like other tools, I think they might be a little bit easier to use. Yeah, it's like a weird thing where I don't think I like that, like the idea of being locked all into like one company because you're then completely dependent on them, but it does make development easier. So I'm curious other people's thoughts on that. Let's see. We just finished a big migration to the new BI tool. A lot of work has been done in DBT and data modeling part of it. That's awesome. Migrating to a new BI tool is a lot of work, but it really makes things so much better. Honestly, like, yeah, I feel like starting from scratch with a new BI tool is oftentimes just way better than trying to fix whatever mess you have going on in a BI tool because there's so much there. And like starting from scratch and figuring out what data models you need to build to actually recreate dashboards and reports that business users are using is way easier than like trying to lift and shift everything because you're starting fresh. You're starting with that foundational work of like these are the data models we need to build in order to power these dashboards and reports, and like otherwise we're not letting you build anything. Like all this raw data can't be touched in the BI layer. And yeah, when I worked at or joined Wink, they had just everything on Domo, and like some of the dashboards were taking 36 hours to run. It was like an absolute nightmare because I think they had hired contractors overseas that were just like writing awful SQL, and like the way Domo, I don't know how it is now, but a few years ago, the way Domo was like you add different transformations to the dashboards to like power the SQL, and like the different like models or queries within the one dashboard, they would just name like transform 1, transform 2, and like some of them sometimes they weren't even in order, like transform 8 would come before transform 6, and it was so bad. I'm like, there's no way I can successfully use Domo if this is like everything that's currently in the environment. Like it's just better to start over and figure out what you need from scratch. All right, well, I am 5 minutes over time. Thank you to everyone that joined today's Friday grind. This was a lot of fun. Now that I actually saw the chat and the questions and knew people were actually listening to what I had to say, um, a lot more fun and rewarding. And I will be back next week. And I haven't decided what topic we're going to talk about, but if you have any ideas of things that you'd like to hear me talk about and discuss related to analytics engineering, data, anything, definitely comment that down below, and I'll schedule the next live stream and let you know what theme. And in the meantime, be sure to check out the Learn Analytics Engineering newsletter, subscribe to the paid subscription if you want access to Data Pipeline Summer, which is coming up, and I will see you on LinkedIn.